Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the social event yesterday. I did. It was great. And I hope today I will have no technical difficulties like yesterday. My name is Chodúr, and I work at Seznam.cz. I'm building observability stack at that company. We are so-called Czech Google, and I will like to talk or walk you through the brief history of Prometheus with images. So we will start easy in the morning, right? There are just images and some talking. So, okay. Yeah, I'll just start a timer so I have the idea. How it all started, or where you can track it back. This is the first commit in the Prometheus repository you could find. It's year 2012, and the commit message says in translation it's Zeus, cover up your skies. And it was done in SoundCloud, where the Prometheus was born actually. So there's some new kid in an observability town. It was a bit of different than the other solutions available. As I said, born in SoundCloud, was a bit similar to Borgman from Google, inspired. And why it was different? The different was the data collection approach, the pull versus push. There was lots of said about it already. So, but I'm not sure if there was any other solution except the Borgman using pull-based approach. So this is definitely a different thing about Prometheus back then. Also, the approach was open box monitoring, like you're really looking what's happening in the application. It tells you raw data, not just I'm okay, but you know what's happening in there. And the multi-dimensional model using labels, allowing you to aggregate data as you wish on the fly. And also powerful query language, PromQL, which is loved by some, hated by others, but yeah, it's powerful. I personally like it. And it tried to keep things simple. It was like single binary, and it just works. It's like, yeah, no moving parts. It was built to withstand. So as I said, it was like all-in-one solution. You have collection of data, you have visualization of the data, and alerting. This is all done in one single binary. The database is included. It's like you just run it, and that's it, right? It just works. Also, it came with some best practices, how to deploy it. So you should deploy it as close to your applications as possible, so the data collection is reliable. We already heard the highly available setup, 2 Prometheus instances next to each other, so you always deploy 2 of those. And the idea of exporters, you need the applications to support the collection of the data. And exporter is like the adapter, translator of the metrics or information about the application you are observing for the Prometheus. So those were also game changers, or the things that were really good about Prometheus. So the year 2015, and it was first public release of Prometheus. In that year also, Federation was added to Prometheus, which allowed you to build a hierarchy of Prometheus instances and federate some higher level data to upper instances of your Prometheus. So this was definitely a thing that made easier or possible to aggregate data for bigger setups. And also Alert Manager was released officially. Alert Manager, if you look up the history of Alert Manager in the repository, it's interesting. At first it was just single Go file, single one. Now the code base is quite bigger. So yeah, it also came a long way. But yeah, 2015 Alert Manager was also born, and it managed the routing of your alerts from Prometheus. And the year 2016, this is actually where I hopped in. I used Prometheus since the version 1.0. Just out of curiosity, who used Prometheus before the 2.0 release in here? Okay, it's like, I know, quarter of people. That's nice. So yeah, the Prometheus, as it's now, if you start Prometheus now, it's packed up with all the nice features, all the things we heard in the previous talks. And this is really great, but it came a long way. And it wasn't always like that. It wasn't that easy. The version 1.0, that was great. There was service discovery. This is why Prometheus gained that much of traction using Kubernetes service discovery, because the number of instances you are using, the microservices approach, required like dynamic monitoring, and this service discovery of Prometheus native support for Kubernetes was the thing. So yeah, that was definitely very useful. And also, first PromCon happened in Berlin. I wasn't there, but yeah, I found out that it was 2016. So it's a few years back. And the community grew because all of these nice features that came, how it was useful, the people started to use Prometheus, and the community, the exporters, started to show up. And Prometheus got to the point of incubation in CNCF. It was actually a second project to incubate, I think, after Kubernetes. So that made it even more popular. In that year, also Prometheus Operator was first started. So I was actually surprised it's that old also. And as I said, all those things led to even more and more adoption of Prometheus. We see it in production. We used it actually from the 1.0 in production successfully. And it was like, yeah, there are some issues, but we were definitely happy about it. But there were still some things missing, or people complain about. And one of those was, for example, highly available visualization. As I mentioned, the highly available setup, having 2 Prometheus instances, it's nice. The high availability is for alerting, like you take one of those instances down, and the other one is still alerting, scraping the data. But the issue is, if you want to visualize the data, you need to ask one or other. There's no aggregation of the data. So one way or another, if you're doing a rolling upgrade, each of the Prometheus instances will actually have like hole in the data. So this was one of the things that was missing, or people complain about it. They would like to have highly available visualization. Also, for bigger setups, there was a demand for like global view of your data. You have multiple data centers. You have 2 instances of Prometheus in each, I don't know, Kubernetes cluster, and you want to, for example, nowadays, if you are alerting on SLOs, probably you would be alerting on global data of your application, of your service, and then you need this global data view. And so you need to aggregate the data from multiple instances of Prometheus. And long-term storage, Prometheus wasn't built with that in mind. So you can find some instances running, I think there was some historical instance having like 10 years of data or something like that, but with low volume of data. But it wasn't that. I hope it didn't happen to you yesterday at the social event. So yeah, those were three things that were like missing, kind of, and the solution was right outside the door. And then year 2017 came, and the generic remote read and write API was added to Prometheus, which allowed us to use or build remote storages for Prometheus that were supposed to solve those issues. So yeah, in 2017, Thanos project was born, Cortex, I think, was born, and there are some other remote storages also created. So they used remote write or remote read APIs, shipping of blocks. Like, the approaches were kind of different, but the integration was possible. So this started to happen. And then version 2.0 came, which was great. New TSDB came. It was like, yay, because if you used the 1.0 Prometheus, there were some issue with memory management and capacity planning with Prometheus. It was like you were tuning some flags all the time. In the documentation, there were a whole lot of text how to configure this, and on GitHub you could find lots of issues about ohming Prometheus all the time. So the new TSDB came. It was completely rewritten. It was way faster. The memory was more stable. It was optimized. So that was great. There are some bugs. There's also some bugs, but yeah, that was all fixed. And then service discovery moratorium came. It was decided that the maintainers team is not possible to provide more or maintain more certain native service discovery code in Prometheus, so they froze the service discovery additions. And so in this year, after 2.0, they just stopped accepting more service discovery solutions. 2018, open metrics standard. Yeah, so the initiative was started. Like, community decided that there should be standardized way of exposing the metrics, because the one used of Prometheus was just proprietary for Prometheus. So based on it, the standard was created, which you can use nowadays. So it was back then. And 2019, support for subqueries came. This was also required or long-awaited feature for some use cases. You couldn't run vector selectors on results of your function. So this was, if you wanted to do this, you needed to create recording rule, wait for the data to record, and then you could use it in PromQL. And it was really it was a lot of work, and it was slow iteration of on those things. So subqueries came, and it made it way easier, and the PromQL way variable, strong query language. And vertical compaction came. Also, lots of people. Prometheus is by design, it was designed like append only. Database, the TSDB was designed as append only. You could have seen in other talks that we are trying to change it, or there's some people are trying still ingest data in the past, but it wasn't designed for it. So actually, vertical compaction came. You can upload some TSDB database blocks in there, and it would work. Compactor would then vertically compact the blocks. So you can upload all data. You can also nowadays, using PromTool, I think, build the data blocks using, I don't know, synthetic data or something like that. So yeah, you can nowadays backfill data in the TSDB, which can be handy. And service discovery moratorium has been lifted. Yay. Lots of new service discovery integrations are nowadays. There's something like 20 service discovery integrations, I think, added. The decision was that there has to be maintainer for each of these service discovery. It doesn't have to be maintainer Prometheus, but there has to be someone responsible for it. So yeah, but you can nowadays add your service discovery to Prometheus. And the year 2020, new React UI came. The old one using Bootstrap and jQuery was deprecated, and the new React UI was nicer. It's nicer, better. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and there are some features. Like, it was definitely easier to add new features to this. So yeah, goodbye the old one. And 2021. Also long-awaited feature requested by users. Prometheus never provided any means of authentication. Always it was like you should put a proxy which will manage this in front of Prometheus and solve it another way. But the demand from users was so big that it was decided to add it. So support for TLS and base out was added to Prometheus. Yay. And exemplars were added. This is a nice feature allowing you to connect observability data, not just from the application metrics with logs, traces, and whatsoever. So this was plugged in, and Prometheus, yeah, the database also wasn't actually built for it, so there's some side story for it, but whatever, it works, and it's just nice and works. And agent mode was added. I said that there was uprising of remote storages. The remote write appears to be the future of shipping the data to the global solution. Actually, Cortex is using it, Thanos is using it nowadays also, Mimir is using it, and most of the remote storages are using it. So Prometheus is shipping the data using the remote write, streaming it to your global storage. And actually, it was some of the users doesn't need all the features of Prometheus, the UI, the alerting, recording rules, and whatsoever. So the agent mode to Prometheus was added, which just does the scraping, the data collection, and shipping the data somewhere. So yeah, this was added. And new PromQL editor, which is really handy, suggestion of labels, documentation of the functions. For example, if you write label replace, I personally never remember which of the argument is which. So this is really, really nice. And we are getting to 2022. First, long-term stable supported version 2.37 was released. There was a Julian talk about it in the first talk, I think, yesterday. So yeah, now you can use LTS version, and you don't have to upgrade all the time. There should be backported bug fixes, etc. And PromQL Prettifier formatter, quite new thing. You can now in the Prometheus UI format the query you enter in there. I hope it will get in PromTool also. And this is really, really great feature because everyone formats the PromQL different way, and sometimes it's really hard to read. So yeah, I think this is really nice feature. We also heard a talk about out-of-order ingestion. I talked about vertical compaction and backfilling. It's like you can add a whole block back in the past, but it's in the storage, and this is like a real-time ingestion. This is meant more for the remote write protocol. It came from Mimir, I think, the implementation. So it's more useful for those who are receiving the remote write. But Prometheus actually is supporting now the remote write itself, so you can use Prometheus to write to other Prometheus using remote write. So yeah, there's also use for this. And the new histograms, we already saw 2 talks about it. It's really, really something exciting, which will be great. It's already in the master. Well, everything was set, so yeah. And that's it. We just came to the present. This is all the journey Prometheus came all the way up to this point. I'm really excited about what the future will bring. Looking forward. I'm not saying what it will bring. I don't know. And at this point, I would like to thank all the maintainers and the community, because all the way Prometheus came up to this point. It's amazing. The code base is huge. The amount of work was also huge. So this is something I would like to thank you all, what you did for the Prometheus and for the community. And that's it from me. If you have any questions, I'm open for it. But yeah, that's it.
Any questions? I'm not seeing one.
Well, it was just images, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, no, we do have Julius has a question.
Okay.
How did you become like this Prometheus historian? Did you do it along the way, or did you look through like all change logs over like 7-8 years to summarize?
Well, yeah, it was a lot of browsing the changelog and commit messages, some things I remembered or that, but yeah, I was speaking at other conference, or already part of the talk was given there. It was in Czech, and it was just like, I don't know, maybe it's good to sometimes think about the past and how did we get here and what led to up to this point. So yeah. And it was also fun to draw it. So. Yeah.
All right. Any more? No? Okay. Well, give it up again for Martin.
Okay.